All right, so many things have been happening around here, and I have been sharing everything I can possibly share. But one topic I want to hit this week, because it is part of a lot of conversations, is living in Florida. Is it time to leave yet? We're getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name is Craig Cunha. I'm a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida. If you're looking for a channel to tell you a little bit more about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and hit subscribe. Hit the little bell to make sure you're notified every time a new video comes out, and go to our app, Our Next Florida Home, if you'd like to do a property search there, or go to our website, ournextfloridahome.com, and get yourself started there. If you've got specific questions, like many of my other clients do, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. Okay, so first I want to give a shout out to a group of people that probably gets missed in this whole equation of devastation that goes on around us, and that's the kids. I've got to give a shout out to them because they have been resilient through all the crap that's gone on between COVID and homeschooling with less qualified teachers, all the way down to now this latest thing with the hurricane. They're out playing amongst the debris. They see it every single day. They lived without the power, without the internet, drinking bottled water and maybe even MREs that were being handed out by the National Guard. There's a lot of change that's happened. Now, many of them displaced further because their school was destroyed and they're being bused or having to be driven by their parents many, many miles away to another foreign school just so that they can get educated. So, kids, I give it to you. Kudos for hanging in there and working your way through this. In fact, we're going to a baseball tournament this weekend to try and bring some normalcy back into our lives. Yes, people may leave. That's a hot topic that we've been talking about. People will obviously make decisions, and it could be to leave. But for everyone that leaves, there's 4 more coming. And that is going to continue because we have something that nowhere else in the country has, and that is the coastlines with the warm weather and the business-friendly environment. Yes, if you're a business owner, you will get to do your business here because that is the way our local government supports the business owners here. So if you haven't heard already in these past weeks with the devastation here, many of the local businesses banded up with each other to help one another out. In fact, James, he's somebody that's relatively new in the community. He has a water sports business here, Sunset Ski and Sport. And he spent his time shuttling people back and forth to the islands because obviously nobody's going to be out jet skiing around. So he used his resources to help everyone out. That's what we do here. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that James said. He's from Washington State, the great Northwest, right? He said, you could not pay me to go back to Washington. I am a Floridian. He's been here a year and a half, and now he's a Floridian. He's not giving that up. You can't replace this lifestyle. So if it's something that you've always dreamed of, don't give up on your dream. You can still find a home here. It's going to take some time to build back a lot of the stuff that we have, to replace some of the things. We're going to talk about that more shortly here, what the real estate market's going to look like. But don't give up on that if it's what you really want. There's still going to be plenty of places for you to go. Now, what did happen is this storm, it damaged about 44,000 homes, destroyed 4,000 of them. And yes, all this will need to be built back. And in the meantime, this area in particular here in Lee County, we do have a little bit more of a problem than some of the other areas because of the fact that we were already trying to climb back out of a shortage of inventory, and we were getting somewhere. We were starting to make headway on that. But with this storm, now, not only did we lose homes, but so many are damaged that they have to be put back in good repair if the owner wants to get the full amount of money. Now, unfortunately, we've got a lot of investors already knocking on doors and making phone calls trying to find out, hey, can I get a damaged home? Can I flip this? Can I fix it and make some money on it? It's going to happen. That's just the nature of the beast. People are looking to take advantage of others' shortcomings, and we are going to be experiencing that for the weeks to come. And to make matters worse, we're heading into season, and in season, people need somewhere to stay, right? Well, our hotels are slammed. You can't get a hotel room here. And if you look further north, we're going to that baseball tournament this weekend, and I'm trying to find a room up there just to keep from driving back and forth amid all this craziness, and the prices are more than double of what they were for this time of year. So that is going to have us possibly game planning another way, but If you're looking for property, you may have to look a little further north up into the Venice, Sarasota, Bradenton, Brandon areas. Unfortunately, you're not getting quite the same lifestyle. Things are a little bit different up there, but they're also, the temperatures are a little bit cooler up there in the wintertime, and the prices are higher. So you're going to spend more money, you're going to be a little colder, and it's going to give you a different overall atmosphere. Obviously, our atmosphere is not going to feel like it once did, especially down in Fort Myers Beach. That's going to take a good year, 2 years, 3 years to start feeling some normalcy. You might remember that Margaritaville is in the stages of construction right now that could let it finish sometime next year. They may push that even harder now just so that we have some kind of a revenue stream back on the beach. Because it's going to take some time to bring that back. That's just what it is. Now, prices are said to stay elevated for the next 12 to 24 months conservatively. And there's a Dr. Johnson at FAU, that's the College of Business, and he basically is saying that these prices are going to stay elevated for a period of time. And that's just kind of the normalcy of what happens. But because we live where we live and have the climate that we do and have the attractions we do, people will forget the whole hurricane thing. Think about how many hurricanes have come to Florida over the decades. There's been many. Are people still living in those same spots that were destroyed? Absolutely. Look what Andrew did to the East Coast. That area's completely built back. Look what Michael did up in the Panhandle. That area's built back. And we're going to build back too. So don't let a hurricane chase you away from your dreams, because it's not going to stop anybody else. Like I said before, for everyone leaving, 4 are coming. One of the other big challenges that we have, it's not so much the shortage of homes now, but it's the supply shortages that we were experiencing throughout the year so far. We still have shortages. Now we need even more materials to repair these homes. That can put a serious cog into the whole revitalization process that we're going to go through. Therefore, you will most likely see some bidding wars come back. You may see price increases. I'm not going to say you're going to see them going way over ask like they once were, but you don't know. We just don't know anything about this at this point. So it's going to be a little bit of a wait and see process. Think back to COVID and how COVID affected the entire country. But what's one of the first states that stood up and kind of stepped out of it all and started living life the way it should be lived? It was Florida. But that's the way we do everything. We stand up to whatever adversity is going to face us, and we step over it. Look what happened with our bridges. We built these suckers back in no time. It took the whole community to come together to do it, but we did it. The governor backed us up. That's why we need to keep him in office. And if we just continue to take these steps forward, you're going to see this area grow back a lot faster than you think. And here's what you need to keep in mind. Brand new attractions on the Gulf are going to bring a lot of people. So you can either be somebody that continued with your plans and moved into the area ahead of the rush, or you're going to be coming with everyone else, because it's going to happen. It's just going to be a matter of what's the time and when is it going to happen. So to give you a little bit of detail about what the market does look like right now, it's not going to plummet. It's not going to fall out. People aren't going to go running and just leave stuff behind unless they don't have a choice. If it was destroyed, obviously they're going to have to start over or sell it to somebody else and let them start over. But here's the interesting thing. In the last 7 days, there were 641 new listings, 583 that closed, and 606 that went pending. Pending means under contract. The last 7 days. So think about that. We're just, 2 weeks removed, going on our 3rd week removed from the storm, and we have 1,200 homes leave the market and another 600 come back on. Hey man, things are still moving here. It's still going to continue to move. It might not be the pace that it once was, but to think that it completely dropped out and nobody wants anything to do with it, that's just not true. You might look for things a little bit differently. Maybe now you're going to be interested in a condo that's a couple levels up. Maybe you'll want a 2-story home that has that extra level. Maybe you're going to be looking in areas that don't have as much of a flood risk. Whatever it is, there's places that you can put yourself that might be different than where you were before, but you can still find somewhere to be. And heck, if you're somebody that's a boater and you want to be on a canal, you're going to be on a canal. You're going to have insurance to make sure you're protected. You're going to leave when the storm comes and you come back and just start over again. That's what it is. But that happens once in a blue moon, because obviously we don't get these storms hitting directly like this on any kind of regular basis. The last one that was close like this was Charlie in 2004, and it went more towards Port Charlotte. Did we feel a little bit of it? Absolutely. Did it hit us like this did? Absolutely not. So take that as part of your decision-making scenario. These storms will happen, but to get direct hits in the same exact spot, look at Andrew. That was back in the 90s. They haven't had one come close to them. So while I can't say it won't ever happen, it's unlikely that it happens like this to us again. Another interesting thing that's happening is builders are tapping out on short-term inventory. I had a conversation with one of my builders yesterday, and all of their inventory that was due to close in the next 5 months, it's gone. He has none left. And he's seeing that there's some hesitancy in going too far out without knowing what's going to happen with the market. But all the short-term stuff is getting eaten up. There's another gentleman at one of the local communities that said that they sold 18 homes in the last 7 days. I mean, that's another indication of what's happening with all the new construction. People need a place to live. If their home was destroyed, if it was beat up and damaged and they need somewhere to live, hey, if you can afford it, buy another home and get into it. But this just shows the market's going to continue to demand these homes. We're not even going to have enough to fulfill the local people, let alone those that are trying to move into the area. One thing you do need to keep in mind, if you are looking at a resale home, we absolutely have to get disclosure about the property, because with all the things that have happened, whether it's flood damage, whether it's wind damage, we don't know what repairs were made, we don't know who made them, we don't know anything about the timelines. So the property disclosure form that we use is something that we will absolutely have to have, so that if there's any facts about the home that we're not aware of, they'll be disclosed in that form. If they're not disclosed in that form and we find out later that that was an incident, then you have grounds to have it repaired properly after the fact. But make sure that you're working with somebody that goes through these steps, takes the extra time, and gets these disclosures so that you're protected if you're buying a resold home in Lee County. The other thing that we could possibly see out of this, just like what we saw out of Charlie, which was that last one that went up through Port Charlotte, that was in 2004, there was a lot of code changes with our building codes. So we could see that kind of thing happen here, especially in areas that are very susceptible to flood, like down on Fort Myers Beach. We might see a whole nother set of standards about how high they have to build up. There's certain areas that already have that. They have to use stem walls down Winkler Extension South. Their homes are built up on stem walls, so you have to go up a set of steps both in your garage and your front door, just because the home needs to be elevated a certain amount given their proximity to the bay. Those are some of the things that we do to protect, but be on the lookout for more codes with the newer construction that's going to make you safer the next time. Now, tourism is one of our absolute biggest money makers locally, and you can bet that we're going to be affected by this. We started setting records all the way back in 2019 with $42.7 million in tourism. Then in 2021, we went to $53.3 million, broke that record too. This year, we were on track to be 26% over that number. So to say that we weren't tearing it up post-COVID, once COVID kind of skated by and everybody realized that you can go to Florida and live that freer life, everybody started coming back again. But the numbers were excessive. And to see that we were that high in revenue on a tourism basis, we're going to get there again. And don't be surprised if that number doesn't still stay elevated. They're just going to find a different way to experience the area. But if we were 53.3 and 26% over that for this year, hey, give us a year or two, we're going to be right back at it. Another interesting thing to think about, we already talked about how hurricanes have affected other areas of our country over on the East Coast specifically, but think about the Caribbean islands. There are just tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that live in those islands. They're subjected to the same thing, yet they still live there. Why? Lifestyle. Again, you can't beat lifestyle. It's going to be one of those things that's going to trump many of these other things. And the other thing is people have very short memories when it comes to things like hurricanes. Yeah, they remember the name and they remember the pictures. They might remember some of the devastation they experienced if they were directly affected, but most people will remember that it was a bad storm, it affected a lot of people, it cost a lot of money, but guess what? Today's a sunny day. We're going to the beach, we're going on the boat, we're going fishing. That's what you get when you live in this area, and it's not going to change. So if it's something you want a piece of, come after it. A big part of the tourist numbers that we talked about was because of things like Fort Myers Beach. And while in the short term we're going to be affected monetarily in that area, when it builds back brand new, we might want to think about another way to bring another bridge over, because there's going to be so many people wanting to come to those new attractions. Look at what's happening up at the resort that's up in Port Charlotte. That thing that Allegiant Airlines is building, it's just massive, and it is garnering all kinds of attention because it's brand new. It's going to have a lot of features that a lot of places around here don't have. Fort Myers Beach will be that, only it's on the beach. You just can't beat being right on the water, and especially if it's new construction with new entertainment and just gives a whole new vibe. This area will be revitalized in short order. Now, if you're somebody who wants more security away from all these things, but you still want to be in Florida, you can go out to a place like Babcock Ranch. I briefly discussed it in one of my other videos. It is a solar city that is probably about 20 miles inland. It's close to the interstate, but not much else. So it is a little bit more of a remote living situation. They do have a number of things there, like supermarkets and ice cream shops and restaurants and things like that to keep you there. There's schools, firehouses. So you don't necessarily have to go anywhere else. But if you want to have a little bit of variety and have different attractions to go to, you'll definitely have to leave. And once again, it's a little bit more remote, so a little bit more travel might be part of your life at that point. There's also places like Lehigh Acres. Lehigh Acres is another option for you. It's a little further out, just kind of like Babcock Ranch. It will get you closer to the interstate and closer to more shopping and dining opportunities than Babcock Ranch, but it's a less developed city. Like the subdivisions are very much, scrub trees and bushes and things. It may not to be everybody's liking, so once again, you're going to have to drive the areas to see what you like and what you don't like, but that area has a higher elevation, and you will not be susceptible to flooding out there. Another thing about the storms is you may not be aware of the damage that has happened in its totality in your property. There's things you can't see, and if it wasn't for the fact that I kind of follow my inspectors around pretty closely to see what they look for and be aware of things that could affect a home. And one of the things that I had was some leaking in my front window here. So I had Rory, my inspector, you've heard his name before, he came out with his moisture meter and he put it on my walls and gave me some readouts. And I snapped pictures of these readouts. And I'm going to tell you why this is important. When the adjuster came from the insurance company, he put his meter on the wall, and his meter had a completely different reading than ones we took. So when that wall starts to dry out, the readings might change, and if they don't register properly to the numbers that you need to show that it's damaged or moist in there, you may not get covered. Thankfully, we took the pictures that will allow us to dispute whatever they have. But again, it's not a seen thing. The wall looks perfect. Nothing looks wrong with it on the outside. The moisture on the inside is going to start the mold process. In fact, I pulled back the carpet because it too got wet during the storm. When I pulled it back, the mold is already growing. Case in point, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. The other thing that Rory told me to do is get up into the attic and check the insulation, because insulation can get moist from the vents up on the roof. When the wind blows the water in, drops into the insulation. Insulation has a paper backing, kind of like a wax paper backing. So the water will sit in there. And if it just sits in there, it will eventually start to mold as well. So you've got to do your due diligence through this process, check everything you can to be sure that you're not affected. And worst case, have a home inspection done. Make sure things are doing what they're supposed to do and that you're not going to be experiencing any of these kinds of things. One of the big complaints we're getting lately is traffic. You'd think we're in season, right? It's not that. We've got a ton of workers here helping out. We've got a lot of different volunteers coming from other states. Obviously, all the electric trucks and the service people here. But the roads are jammed. I was on the roads yesterday, and I couldn't wait to get home. Just very, very busy. Hopefully, this clears up a little bit before season comes, because at that point, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. You might as well just stay wherever your reservations are and enjoy the sunshine and the pool. And one of our small blessed things that we absolutely love, this happened right after the storm and it's happening again. We're waking up to 50s and 60s in the morning, high temperatures, mid 70s. We've got this for a few days. We're going to cycle back around the next weekend and get it again. This is the time of year that we love to be in Florida, and this will now continue all the way through April. So those of you that say it's god-awful hot in Florida all year long, come on down, check it out. It's not god-awful hot at all. Anyway, that's a little bit more about living in Florida. Is it time to leave? Hey, that's a decision that you have to make, and you have to make that decision too. Is this the place I still want to move to? If not, you have other options. But if you want more information about what it's like to live in Florida or live in Southwest Florida, check out one of these other videos. But if you got a specific question that you need an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.